يدوم.
الإمام ضاع.
لا
الإمام ما كان حدنا.
الإمام رجع.
لا نون ضاع. الإمام got lost. شو؟ الإمام lost. ما بعرف. والله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه وعليه نتوكل ونتوب إليه ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما وسلموا اليوم بتحية الجنة الفردوس. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أما بعد يقول عز وجل في كتابه يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وبعد. Today will be a little bit difficult, as you can imagine. I know many of our hearts are down and are in a state of sadness, anger, confusion. But it's important to remember that even amidst tragedy, al-haq huwa al-haq, that the truth is the truth, wa Allah huwa al-haq, and that Allah is ultimately the truth. And in fact, that verse that we always hear when you hear the Imam begin the khutbah of Jumu'ah, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tumutunna illa wa antum muslimun. O you who believe, have fear of Allah and act towards Him correctly as it is His right to do so, haqqa tuqatihi, and do not die except in a state of Islam as a Muslim, وَلَا تُمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And in fact, this is precisely what we saw in this horrific attack in New Zealand, was people very much like ourselves, going to Jumu'ah, going about their lives as they think is normal. And I was very reluctant to even touch on this topic today, but I feel that I almost have an obligation to do so. And they were following that commandment, right? وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. What they didn't know is that that was going to be their final moments in this life. But as tragic as it was, and we will deal with the injustice and the tragedy, we will deal with that. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, they are shuhada. May Allah Ta'ala accept their ibadah, accept them as shaheed, accept them, inshallah, into the highest ranks of Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. And this is the worldview of Islam. This is the worldview of a Muslim, to look upon not only tragedy in this case, but also happiness. That at the end of the day, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. All of us are going to have to face and confront the reality of dying. And when Allah Ta'ala said, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, He did not say what the kayfiyah, what the how-to of will we die in such a tragic incident as that? Will we grow to old age and pass away in our sleep? Will we die like those Muslims who also died in the plane crash in Ethiopia? May Allah Ta'ala also accept from them and grant them Jannatul Firdaus. We have been shown actually a number of ways that this reality manifests. Yes, it was a grave injustice to go and kill people in a house of worship. But at the same time, those people on the plane, what did they do, so to speak, to ask to go in such a way? That is the harsh reality that we must confront as believers, is that we are not promised any way to go, but we are promised that we will go. And we must accept that when our time has come, that we cannot put it off, we can't rush it. And in fact, an unwillingness to deal with the reality of death and of the hour, Allah Ta'ala talks about in many places in the Quran. For instance, in Surah Ashura, in the 42nd chapter of the Quran, Allah Ta'ala talks about يَسْتَعْجِلُونَ بِهَا الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهَا. Those that either are trying to rush the hour coming, right, which could not only mean rushing your own, but for somebody else, that you think you're going to take somebody from this life before the time to go. Only people that want to rush the hour are those that really don't have any belief in it. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. However, those that do believe, they مُشْفِقُونَ مِنْهَا وَيَعْمَلُونَ أَنَّهَا الْحَقِّ. Right, they're the ones that believe and that they know that it is true. So as we face these kinds of tragedies, we have to be careful into being led into certain ways of thinking and certain ways of feeling that deny the truth of Allah's statement, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. We have to be careful of being encouraged to be hyper emotional about everything. Not that we can't have emotion. We should have emotion. It's sad. It is a sad situation. But we must be careful, because some people's trying to lead us into this way of thinking, to be quite honest, is because, one, it profits them. I myself this morning received a number of phone calls from media outlets, and they wanted to know what was my reaction to it. I'm like, well, what do you mean, what is my reaction? I wasn't there. You mean like just how do I feel about it? I said, well, so when I tried to essentially give them this point of view, well, it is a tragedy, but we also believe that, God is merciful and that Allah will reward these people, and inshallah they will be in Jannah and such. I'm looking at it through the lens of Islam, which involves having a hereafter. It involves having an akhirah. It involves them getting justice on the day of judgment. This person that did, they will face justice and so on. When I went down this road, thank you very much, Mr. Manley, click. They're not interested in hearing somebody who is able to deal with the tragedies of life without losing their mind, because it just, quite honestly, doesn't sell as much ad space and it doesn't create as much clickbait. We should be cautious in allowing ourselves to be manipulated, but we grieve. Even if a non-Muslim dies, the response is Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong and to Allah we are returning. This is something we can say, Muslim or non-Muslim dies. We acknowledge not only the reality and the existence of death, but we acknowledge the hereafter and going back to Allah. And it is sad, and most importantly in this time, this is one of the things that we learned when we had our recent conference on Islamic psychology. Our community needs to do a little bit better about helping families grieve. Because it's the people that left behind that have, in some ways, the hardest task. Those people that Allah chose to take at that time in that way, their book is closed. But for some people staying behind, they have difficulty in accepting how it happened. We should be there to help people grieve and help them deal with tragedy. And sometimes, when a person dies, you get so much Inna lillahi inna ilayhi raji'un and this and this and this and inshallah Allahu yarhamuhum inshallah fil jannah and all this stuff, to the point where the people that are grieving, they're like, man, can I cry a little bit? Can I shed some tears? Is it okay if I feel bad because my son, my daughter, my mother, my aunt, my father, my neighbor, my friend was taken? Can I? Right? And as we know, in the statement from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, for the one that had a dear companion, and Allah takes that companion from them in this life, and it causes them grief, it causes them sadness. But if they're able to maintain a dhanna hasana, a good opinion of Allah, not that they don't cry, not that they don't grieve, not that they don't feel sad, but they're not resentful to Allah that they took them, then they both will have the reward of Jannah in the hereafter. So we have to be able to allow people to grieve. We have to allow people to have their human expressions. But to be quite frank, we also have to deal with some other aspects of what this reality shows us. And I'm reminded again of an interaction between a man and the Prophet ﷺ when he came and he said, Ya Rasulullah, Mata'a as-sa'a. Oh Rasulullah, when will the final hour be? And his response ﷺ was, Ma a'adadtu laha. What did you do to prepare for it? And we have to prepare for all contingencies, not only the contingency of the hereafter, but how many incidents like this have we seen? Where not only us, but this shouldn't be a surprise. We saw what Anders Breivik, the media says, don't mention their name, especially right now. The alt-right media is in a real hush to say, don't share his name and don't share because they don't want to be complicit in perhaps contributing to this. But no, I'm going to mention his name, Anders Breivik, la'natullahi alayh, who killed all those people over there in Scandinavia, many of them young Muslims. We've seen this before. We saw what happened in Montreal. A same perpetrator went into a masjid and did the same thing. So as I told the woman on the phone, I'm not surprised that it happened. It's an unfortunate incident, but I can't really say it's something that really caught me off guard. The other question is, as the Prophet ﷺ replied to this man, what have you done to prepare for it? Why do the vast majority of our communities have virtually no security? Why are we uncomfortable with confronting the reality that there are some people that do not like us and are maybe even perhaps willing to do something about not liking us? And this isn't to create a hysteria or a panic. But as we know, even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when some of the believers went to pray, others watched over them. Why do we not have this system? We have to ask ourselves from a community. And this is why I'm not going to point fingers at any particular masjid. This is just a broader community question. We are uncomfortable of being different. And therefore, with being different, we may have different needs. Our neighbors in the evangelical church may not really have that kind of need. But ask our Jewish fellow citizens if they feel the need for security after what happened in Pittsburgh. And trust me, if they are willing, this kind of ideology and mentality, if they are willing to attack Jews in the West, then we are kidding ourselves that people don't harbor the same kinds of feelings towards us. And again, this is not about sending anybody into a panic and whatnot, but we need to confront the reality on this, and to be quite honest, الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are the protectors and foundation of women. We need to have a conversation about masculinity in the Muslim community that involves men standing up and protecting their families. And this isn't about going out and everybody going now to apply for a conceal and carry license and getting, strapping on. This is not necessarily about all of that. It's about an attitude of being cognizant and accepting what the reality is and taking whatever steps that we do so. I need to ensure our safety. It's just a matter of what reality is. We don't get to shape reality. We can simply react to it the best as we can. Just as no more than can we prevent tragedies like this from happening. Allah says, "Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut." Every soul will taste death, and we have no control how we will. At the same time, we know one of the most famous traditions from the Prophet ﷺ, he said what? Trust in Allah, but tie your camel. It's about being prepared, accepting what reality is, and dealing and being responsible for it. So inshallah, in the second khutbah, just a reminder about the importance of being prepared, looking at reality in the face, and also being willing to understand we have particular needs that other people may not have, and that's okay. And inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala give us success in fulfilling the needs of our community. First, again, we ask Allah Ta'ala to have mercy upon those 49 souls that were taken in New Zealand. May Allah Ta'ala bless them, forgive them for their sins, admit them into paradise. For those Muslims that lost their lives in the crash in Ethiopia, may Allah Ta'ala again overlook their mistakes, forgive them of their sins, and admit them to paradise. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَكَفِّرْ عَنَّا سَيِّئَاتِنَا. أستغفر الله أستغفر الله أستغفر الله. الحمد لله وكفى وصلواته وسلامه على رسوله المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. One of the other things that I want us to remember is that, again, what have we done to prepare for it? Because we might not have such a sensational way of leaving this life. We might grow old and die, very simply. But what have we done for that meeting with Allah? And it shows that life is not only is life fragile, but the hisab, the account that we all have with Allah, is also equally as fragile. If I were taken from this life today, whether through a so-called act of terrorism, or just through a stroke, or if I trip and fall and snap my neck on the curb, right? Am I ready to go in front of my Lord today and here's my book of deeds. I'm content with what I've done in this life. I've made up for my mistakes. I've repented enough. I've given enough charity. I've visited enough sick people. I've been kind to enough old people. I've read enough Quran. I've stood enough in the night. Even as Imam, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that I am anywhere remotely ready for that kind of accountability. And therefore, I should have a focus about this life that while I do stop and smell the roses, and I do either allow myself to experience emotion, or I support other people when they go through their hardship. As we said before, al-Muslim akhul Muslim, la yudlimuhu wa la yuslimuhu, right? A Muslim is the brother or the sister of another Muslim. We don't oppress one another, and we don't abandon one another. So we should be careful of how we treat one another, because that may also be waiting for us on the day of judgment. That will be in our book. But that we need to also face the reality Life in this life is going to end and another one is going to begin. And that new life that is going to begin will be permanent. It will have no death and it will have no sickness, but it will either be in the garden or it will either be in the fire. And this is the cold, hard facts. As we like to say in English, this is the facts of life, or the facts of this life and the next life. And while we have to, again, do our due diligence, protect ourselves, take certain measures, at the end of the day, we cannot become the ibad al-khawf. We cannot become people that worship fear. We are ibad Allah. We are those that worship Allah. We cannot succumb to fear, where fear does the decision-making process for us, but that we make our decisions based most upon what is Allah going to be pleased with. And under that umbrella of what is Allah pleased with is, yes, we need to take steps to ensure our safety and our security. But we also need to take steps to ensure we have the best possible outcome of that meeting with Allah. You know, we have a saying, as I finish, we have a saying in English, for the young people, when you go for a job interview or something else, you said, you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. Well, in a similar vein, you only have one opportunity to be judged by Allah. You have one opportunity to meet with Allah and be judged by Him. And that is highly contingent upon what we are doing in this life now. And if we take that meeting seriously, then our behavior should change. So think about that today, about what are you worth? What is your life worth? What is the lives of your wives and husbands and children and friends? What are they worth? And are we encouraging one another to have the best possible outcome, not only in this life, but most importantly, inshallah, in the next one? Again, keep these people that have passed away, that have had their lives unjustly taken from them. May Allah Ta'ala grant them Jannah. May Allah Ta'ala also grant them justice. May Allah Ta'ala bring justice, grant them justice, and may Allah Ta'ala provide sakina. May Allah Ta'ala provide some tranquility for those families that are dealing with their loved ones being here one day and gone the next. And may Allah Ta'ala bestow upon their hearts dhanna hasana, a good opinion of Him, so that they will both be met, inshallah, on that day in the next life in good standing. Wa aqim as-salam.
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة